You spend enough time on the road starts talking to you. Not in a crazy way, mind you. I'm not talking about seeing ghosts in the chrome of your grill. I mean the little things. The way the tires hum a different tune on fresh asphalt. The way the wind whistles a warning before a storm. You learn the language of the long haul. My rig, she's got her own dialect. She's an old Peterbilt, seen more miles than the moon, and her soul lives in the dashboard. Specifically, in the old Kenwood radio I've had since I bought her. Most of the time, it's a faithful companion. Pulls in country from 100 miles out, crackles with the chatter of other lonely souls on the CB. But sometimes it gets a mind of its own, and it only ever happens in one place. Vermont. The old-timers call it the switcher. The guys who've been running these routes since before the interstates were a gleam in a politician's eye. You'll hear them talking about a phantom station that doesn't exist on any map, a frequency that bleeds through the static when you get deep enough into the Green Mountains, where the trees crowd the road and the cell signal dies. They say a voice comes through, quiet, calm, and it gives you instructions. The legend has two endings, and neither of them is good. The first one's simple. You don't listen. You think it's a prank, a crossed signal, whatever. You keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. And somewhere in the next few miles, you find your ditch. A blown tire, a deer that appears from nowhere, a patch of black ice on a summer night, a freak accident. The second ending is worse. The second ending is what happens when you listen. The voice, they say, will guide you. It'll tell you to take turns onto roads that aren't on the map. It'll lead you deeper and deeper into the woods, into the dark heart of the state. It'll lead you to a place where the lonely are company, and the journey ends for good. A place you don't come back from. I'd heard the stories for years. Laughed them off, mostly. I'm a practical man. I believe in diesel, steel, and the logbook I have to keep. But tonight, I'm hauling a reefer full of Vermont dairy, pushing through Route 9. It's just past midnight. The fog is rolling in thick, swallowing my high beams. I reach over to the Kenwood, trying to find something to keep me awake. All I'm getting is static. I twist the dial, and it's just fuzz. I leave it, letting the white noise fill the space. And then, it happens. The dial doesn't click. It slides. A smooth, bloody turn all on its own. The static cuts out, replaced by a dead, perfect silence. And from that silence, a voice, no louder than a whisper, speaks right into my ear. There is a way station ahead. It says, pull in. My blood went cold. It wasn't the words. It was the voice. It was nothing. No accent, no emotion, no crackle. It was as clean and sterile as a doctor's office. It wasn't coming from the speaker so much as it was just in the cab. My first instinct was pure disbelief. Some kid with a pirate radio. It had to be. I reached for the dial, but my fingers stopped. The old stories came rushing back. If you don't listen, you find your ditch. It was stupid, a superstition. But the fog outside was like a wall. Up ahead, through the mist, I saw the blue and white sign. Way station, all trucks must enter. The lights were on. It was open. The voice was right. Okay, you little punk, I muttered. Funny joke. I flicked my turn signal and guided the rig down the ramp. I rolled onto the scale and waited. A state trooper, a young guy, came out. He looked at my papers, walked around the truck, log books in order. Brakes look good, he said. You're heavy, but you're legal. What's your cargo? Milk and cheese, I said. Headed for Boston. He nodded. Road's getting real soupy up ahead. Be careful. We had a nasty one out here last week. Guy in a flatbed. Just went straight off the road on a gentle curve. No reason for it. The hair on my arm stood up. I just nodded. Will do. He waved me on as I pulled off the scale. The radio was still silent. I thought maybe that was it. I merged back into the empty road. The fog seeming even thicker now. I was just starting to relax when the radio hummed back to life. Same silence, same voice. Good, it said, and the word held no praise, just acknowledgement. Into miles, there is an unmarked service road on your right. Take it. My stomach dropped. This was different. An unmarked road. That was the other half of the legend. That was the road you don't come back from. I could turn the radio off, but the trooper's words echoed in my head. Was that another driver who decided not to listen to Miles? The green mile marker signs flashed by, counting down my decision. 112.111. My mind was a civil war. The practical men screamed that this was insanity, but the driver in me felt a deep, cold certainty. The choice wasn't about a prank. It was about which ghost story I was more afraid of becoming. The one about the wreck, or the one about the man who disappeared. Ahead, I saw it, not an exit, just a break in the guardrail and a path of packed dirt and gravel vanishing into the black wall of pine trees. It was exactly where the voice said it would be. Every instinct screamed at me to keep going. You don't take an 80,000-pound rig down a dirt path in the middle of a foggy night in Vermont. It's suicide. But the alternative, the image of that flatbed, twisted and broken, flashed in my mind. The trooper's words. No reason for it. My blinker clicked on. The decision was made. Not by courage, but by pure, undiluted fear. I slowed the truck, the air brakes hissing. I cranked the wheel, and the big Peterbilt lurched off the smooth pavement onto the rough dirt. The branches of the pines scraped along the side of my trailer, a sound like long fingernails on a coffin lid. The highway was gone. I was committed. The road was barely wide enough for my truck. The ground was soft in places. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I was driving at a crawl. Then the voice came back. Turn off your headlights. I slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded to a halt. No, I said out loud. No way. I can't see a thing out here. The radio was silent. It didn't argue. It just waited. The silence was worse than a threat. I sat there for what felt like an eternity. The darkness outside the cab was total. But the logic, twisted as it was, held firm. I had come this far by listening. Changing the rules now felt like a death sentence. With a shaking hand, I reached for the dashboard. I hesitated, my whole body screaming in protest. Then, I twisted it. Click. The world vanished, plunged into a blackness so complete it felt physical. I was blind, adrift in a sea of nothing, the only sound the low growl of my engine. I had just given up my eyes on the command of a ghost in my radio, and I had no idea what was coming next. For a long moment, I just sat there, frozen in the purest darkness I had ever known. Just as I was about to snatch the knob and turn the lights back on, the voice spoke again. Proceed. 20 miles per hour. Proceed where? I yelled. I'm blind. No answer. I took a deep breath and let out the clutch slowly. The truck crept forward into the abyss. I was driving entirely by feel. Every muscle in my body was tensed for impact. But it didn't come. I pushed it to 20. And then something strange began to happen. As my eyes adjusted, the world started to come back in shades of gray. The fog was glowing, not with a light from a source, but with a faint, internal luminescence. The trees were pale, skeletal outlines. The road itself had a soft, silvery sheen. It was impossible, but it was happening. I could see, enough to steer. Bear left at the split, the voice said. Up ahead, the pale road forked. I eased the truck to the left. The voice guided me like this for what felt like hours. I passed dark shapes of old stone walls, and the silhouette of a farmhouse with a crooked, impossible geometry. A sense of profound wrongness settled over me. This place was ancient. I lost all track of how far I had driven. The journey became a strange, hypnotic trance. The glowing road, the skeletal trees, the calm voice, the low rumble of my engine. I was a ferryman driving my steel boat down a river of ghosts. Finally, the voice gave its last command. Stop here. You have arrived. The glowing road opened up into a wide, circular clearing. I eased the truck to a stop. The engine idled, And then, for the first time, the radio gave off a soft crackle of static. The phantom station was gone. I was alone. I killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was deafening. No crickets, no wind, nothing. I sat there, staring out the windshield. In the center of the clearing stood a single, ancient-looking gas pump. Next to it was a low, dark building with a sagging porch roof. The windows were black, vacant eyes, and all around the clearing, half swallowed by the pale trees, where other trucks stopped, my blood turned to ice. There were a dozen of them, at least. Old models, a 70s era Mac, a snub-nosed International. They weren't wrecked. They were parked, silent, waiting. This was the place you don't come back from. It wasn't a crash site. It was a graveyard, a parking lot at the end of the world. These were the drivers who had listened. The voice had led them here to simply stop. The horror of it was in its quietness, its finality. It was worse than a wreck. It was an erasure. A primal, animal terror finally broke through. This was a trap, and the door was closing. I didn't think. I acted. I slammed the key back in the ignition and twisted it. The engine screamed to life, a violent, roaring protest. I threw the truck into gear. I cranked the wheel hard, not even looking for the road I'd come in on, just aiming for the darkest gap in the trees. I stomped on the accelerator. The Peterbilt roared and bucked, tires spinning before finding purchase. I crashed through the tree line, branches screeching and snapping against the metal. I was driving blind again, but this time it was a wild, panicked blindness. I don't know how long I drove like that. All I know is that suddenly, my headlights, which I hadn't even realized were on, flashed across something reflective. A road sign, then another, and then, with a bone-jarring lurch, my tires hit pavement. I was back on the highway. The sky in my rearview mirror was turning a soft, pre-dawn purple. The fog was gone. I pulled over onto the shoulder, my whole body shaking. I was covered in sweat, my heart a wild drum against my ribs. I never haul through Vermont at night anymore. I'll take the long way round, add a day to my trip, I don't care. I got the Kenwood checked out by 3 different mechanics. They all said the same thing. It's a piece of junk, but there's nothing wrong with it. I thought about replacing it, but I'm afraid to. It feels like it knows me now. Sometimes, when I'm telling this story to some fresh-faced kid at a truck stop, he'll ask me what I think would have happened if I'd gotten out of the cab, if I'd walked over to that dark diner. And I tell him the truth. I don't know. But I think the no-return part of the legend isn't about dying. It's about staying. It's about walking into that diner, sitting down at the counter, and waiting with all the other drivers for a cup of coffee that never comes. A part of me, I think, is still there, parked in that silent clearing, waiting for a destination that never arrives.